Intuitive, raw, resilient.
Hi everyone, this is Heather Vickery. Thanks so much for tuning in to this week's episode of the Brave Files podcast, where we share real stories from real people who are out redefining bravery every single day. When this week's guest, Ali Goodman, first got pregnant, she never expected her journey to take her down such a tumultuous path, starting with loss and also finding out that her child had autism. This journey towards disability advocacy and fighting for a diagnosis has been trying and challenging. Ali is here to share her story of loss, overcoming, passion, and most importantly, love. She's also had to work through her own anxiety and depression to become the best mother possible while still finding herself. In this episode, we explore some honest truths, like the fact that the child you imagine having while pregnant is likely not going to be the child you get. But you have to learn to love and accept your child for exactly who they are. We talk about the fact that autism is not something you have to fix. It's just a way that the brain works differently, and learning to navigate parenthood is often not easy, but it can be rewarding, and it's always worth it. But most importantly, you have to take care of yourself in order to take care of the people around you. I'm excited to share this episode with you, but before we get started, I want to share some really exciting, wonderful news with you. My new book, which is officially released on October 28th, Fuck Fearless, Making the Brave Leap, just received a 5-star review from readers' favorites. Here's what the review had to say. Fuck Fearless, Making the Brave Leap by Heather Vickery is a no-holds-barred, non-fiction self-help guide that flips the titular term of fearlessness on its head. Vickery presents a unique model to refocus on the mindset that shackles us to a narrow outlook and make actionable modifications from within to broaden what we are truly capable of. The BRAVE method, an acronym of change, pinpoints specific mechanisms that include boundaries, the 3 R's of reassessment, reframing, and resilience, action and accountability, vulnerability, and finally, expand and empower. Vickery's writing style is both conversational and authoritative, and the method is backed up with 2 standout characteristics: Brave Spotlights featuring case studies of clients and podcast guests who have done the work and show the results, as well as Brave Action sections where you can get in and do the work on your own. This is a fantastic book that I am certain has the capacity to move readers into action for positive change when they are ready to grab it. How cool is that, folks? It is so fun to start seeing the reviews come in for the book. I want to share it with you. Pre-orders will be available in the very near future, but if you want to stay up to date on release information and other awesome news, be sure to subscribe to my newsletter. You can do that by visiting my website, vickeryandco.com. All right, folks, let's get to it. This is Heather Vickery, and you're listening to The Brave Files, stories from people living courageously. When we choose bravely in big and small ways, it powerfully elevates our lives. I hope these stories connect with you and encourage you to embrace bravery in every possible way, day after day. Together, we can build a movement of courageous living that enriches both our lives and our communities. And if you enjoy the show, I ask you to please share it with others. Maybe think of someone who you want to choose bravely right alongside you. Thanks for tuning in. Now here's the show. Friends, parenting is a wild journey. Some of us have an easy time getting pregnant. Some of us face countless hurdles and heartbreaks. But one thing we all have in common is that once we're on the path to parenthood, we have this idea of how we imagine our lives as parents and our child's lives will turn out. Hot take here, it is almost never what we have most imagined in our head. And yet we still dream and plan, and we have expectations. Well, today's guest, Ali Goodman, has discovered firsthand how those plans can be tossed right out the window once real life steps in. Since her child was diagnosed with autism, Ali has had to navigate a traditional school system, advocate in a big way for her child, and figure out how to support her younger child when so much focus is put on an eldest one who has what appears to be a more prevalent and obvious need. We're going to talk about this and a lot more. Ali, welcome to the Brave Files.
Hi, thanks for having me.
I'm really looking forward to this conversation because I think I've been thinking a lot about this since we spoke, but just in general, since I first had my own children, like there's no guidebook, but somehow we imagine this path. Did you do that? like when you were expecting, did you like have this play in your head of what you thought would happen for your child?
100%. I mean, I just like, my husband and I were both really dorky, and we were like, yes, he's gonna be a dork and we're gonna love it. And, so we had all of these ideas of the things we wanted to do with him, places we wanted to go, stuff we wanted to experience together. And it just didn't quite turn out that way.
It just didn't. And I think it doesn't ever, right? Because
Correct.
We forget that we're not in control. And this isn't a religious statement, but our kids are like, they're going to be who they're going to be.
Exactly.
And it is irrelevant. I mean, my mom would definitely say my life went awry when I came out at the ripe old age of 38. So
I think it's amazing.
Thank you. And she does now as well, right? But my life definitely didn't go down the path that she anticipated. And I hear that from people who are entrepreneurs, but their family is like blue collar. And there are so many different ways that what we imagine for our children isn't who they're destined to be in the world. So can you tell us a little bit about your child and his journey?
Absolutely. So my son is named Jackson, and when my husband and I first got married, we didn't even think we were going to have kids. So fun. And when I got pregnant, it was actually one of those things that's like, well, I'll get off the birth control. We'll see what happens. And of course, immediately I got pregnant.
Fertile myrtle.
Yeah, of course. You can't plan that, right? You think you can.
Well, that's funny because so many people say, I spent all these years trying not to get pregnant, and then I couldn't get pregnant when I wanted to, and you have the opposite story there. So
exact opposite. So we were kind of thrown into it a little bit quicker than we anticipated, but ready for the journey and everything went fine. Like there was nothing interesting, I would say, about my pregnancy other than I was a little bit older. I was 36 when I had 34, 36. I don't remember. I think it was 36. Yeah, no, it was 36 when I had him. And so, you're considered geriatric at that point, according to the doctors. It's ridiculous. But
yeah.
Yeah, I'm
AMA. It's brutal.
Yeah. So, he came 3 weeks early, but literally to the day. Like, if he had come a few hours earlier, he probably would have been considered a preemie. But because he was literally on the 37-week mark, he was considered, like, full term.
Full term, yeah.
Yep. And my water broke. We went in. I couldn't deliver him. Just, like, crazy stuff with, like, I I didn't fully, I fully effaced, but I didn't fully dilate. And so they were like, okay, you've been going through labor for a while. We're going to do an emergency C-section. So that was about the most dramatic thing that happened. And it's not that dramatic because that happens to a lot of people, right?
Yeah. Yep.
So, he was my sweet little boy, and he was great. And everything was okay. I'm also I'm prone to anxiety, and I'm prone to depression. So I know that first time mommy things were probably, you know what I mean? Like every little thing, you're like, oh, they coughed. Oh my gosh, is he going to be okay? Yeah. So there was a lot of that. He had a few ear infections, nothing bad, like nothing crazy. And then, I don't know, he was maybe a year. And I just began getting this feeling, listening to my gut, and my gut was saying, you should really ask about these things because he doesn't seem to be hitting these milestones the way other kids are. I would see other kids, we would visit other friends or whatever, and I'm like, he's just not there. And everybody told me, you're just a first-time mom, you're just worried because of that. And I was like, okay. Ask the doctor. The doctor's like, you're just a first-time mom, you're just worried about everything. And I was like, okay. And when he hit about 15 months, I was convinced that we needed to get him checked out. My biggest concern at that point was that he wasn't using his right arm. to like pick things up. Yeah, it was really bizarre. Like he would pick things up with his left, and he would like, imagine picking up a ball with two hands. He would basically take the left hand and he would roll it up his body. Like he would not use that right arm. So that was my first indication. And again, the doctor told me I was being worried for nothing. And I said, he walks in his toes. Should I be worried about that? No, he makes eye contact. He's fine. Don't worry about anything.
Oh, that is a sign. I even know that.
Yeah.
And I don't have autistic children, but the toe walking for
right.
sure.
The toe walking. And it's not for every kid and it's not every single time, but that's an indicator. But because at that time they weren't doing diagnoses essentially until 2, nobody really wanted to give me any sort of guidance. And I felt really alone. I finally heard from a friend you can call, early intervention, and they can come in and do assessments, and they're not going to give you a diagnosis, but they'll at least work with your kid if they're below a certain amount of percentage. So I did that. And that started for him, you age out of that at 3. So he started that almost at 2 and went through a year. And again, everybody's like, he's making progress, he's labeling correctly, he's a little behind, but I think he's going to be fine. Like nobody was worried except for me.
Except for you. What about your husband? Was he worried?
He was.
Or did he think you were overprotective?
He thought I was being a little overprotective. He kept believing that things would even out, that he would even out. And I just didn't. I just didn't believe it. And he got into this preschool. We took him, everything was great. And we started getting calls from them saying, hey, have you noticed that he's not talking? Now, in our house, he talked all the time. What I didn't understand is that talking at that point should have been more conversational, not just I say these words and I can memorize a book and I have all of these things I can label. I didn't realize that wasn't what they meant. So when they explained like he isn't saying things that he wants or needs, I was like, oh, okay. And then I reached out to try to find a doctor for him. And I don't know if you know, just our healthcare in general, but developmental pediatric doctors are nearly impossible to get into because everybody's worried about their kids and they're not developing correctly and blah, blah, blah. So it's a year at least to get in to see these doctors. And it just so happened I happened to get a 6-month appointment and I took it. So we're going through the school year and I'm noticing everything they're saying and I'm just getting more and more convinced. My husband's getting more and more convinced. We finally go into the doctor. He takes one look at him, plays with him for about 5 minutes, and he said, well, what do you think this is? And I said, I'll give you all the money in my wallet if you tell me that he doesn't have autism. And he said, no, he does.
There you go.
Okay,
wow.
So I was right. Yeah, I was like, I was right. Like that matters. But getting, right? Like, ooh, take one off for Ali. Like it was so stupid. But as we were sitting in there and just getting that confirmation moment was both the biggest relief and also the biggest fear and terror that I have ever felt in my life. Yeah, he literally wrote out on a prescription pad, autism. Or, autism, whatever it is that like they say, but the word autism was right there. And he handed me this prescription and I'm like, what do I do with this? I don't know what to do with this.
Yeah.
So as much as I was relieved that I was right, I was now terrified because it was a whole world I did not know how to navigate. And it isn't something that you can prepare for. Because it's not like when he was in utero, they were saying, okay, now listen, there's a couple of things that we're noticing or things that are not growing right or things that are not happening. And you might have some preparation. All my tests came back fine. Everything was fine. I had a full, I'm Jewish, so we had the whole Ashkenazi Jewish, panel, like the whole 9. And everything was negative. Everything was fine. And so, I went in with this, I'm going to have this great kid and no worries and no problems. And yes, I know kids can get sick and that's fine. But never did it even occur to me that I was about to navigate a world of a child with, extra needs, special things that I wasn't a part, I knew nothing of.
Yeah. Yeah. There is a mother's intuition is a real thing. I don't mean to downgrade father's intuition or any parent's intuition, but there does seem to be some sort of connection where we can sense things maybe before anyone else does. And I don't know if that comes from the shared chromosomes that are still in one another's bodies.
Yeah.
Scientifically, we've learned about. I mean, I'm laughing, but it's true. Like, they really do stay part of us and we stay part of them forever.
Yeah.
And so there's something to that. What changed for you once you got this diagnosis?
I went into research mode, which I do at first. So I was basically following the same path that I normally would, and I was like, okay. And I said, the one thing I knew, the one thing I had seen in some of other people is they didn't come out with it. They didn't tell people, and I don't know if it was from shame or from guilt or from whatever feelings they were going through. But my husband and I made a pact that we were never, ever going to hide this because this is part of who he is. So we literally got on Facebook Live the next day, or like a video that we uploaded to Facebook, and told everybody. And what I got was this amazing outpouring of support. What I didn't expect was to be so overwhelmed with information. So I'm a research person. Like, I want to find all the information. I'll go down a rabbit hole and like really dig in and learn about something. And my husband's the exact same way. But all of the information that came at me was so intense and overwhelming. And it was so out of my control. Nothing I could do was going to change this. I could maybe make his life a little easier. I could help and learn how to do these things, but it felt so far away. So the very first thing I think I felt was humbled in a way that I've never felt humbled before. This wasn't something I could fix. This wasn't something I could do anything about. And it was here, and it was in my lap, and it had been here, and now we just gave it a name, and it just felt more real having a name, even though I already knew. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So the big change for me was all of my overwhelm took me out of what I always saw as one of my strengths, which is I can research this and I can find all the information, and we're going to do the right things, and we're going to make it. There was too much information. There was too much overwhelm. There was too much emotion. And so I had to start to learn how to not take this control to fix, because there's nothing to fix. I'll be honest, that took a little while to recognize.
Yeah, I think that's a really big one. Like, you can't fix. You have to recalibrate. Try new things. Yeah.
New navigation. That's always what I say. Like, navigating the waters in a different way, because it isn't what I interpreted and expected. So once that started, down that journey, the doctor had given us a few things, hey, you can call for these kinds of things. So we started researching those things, and I asked people, I got answers to questions that I had wanted, but I also, I'll be honest, I still felt in my mind, my kid's gonna blossom. It's not like he's gonna outgrow this. I know this is who he is and this is what it is, but he's gonna be one of those people that you just don't really know. And I was so wrong.
Yeah.
And coming to terms with that piece, because like I know people who are autistic adults, and you wouldn't know unless you knew what to look for. And there's such a range because it's such a spectrum, and they use that correctly. But I was under the assumption that with the right therapy and with the right school and advocacy and all of that, we could turn this thing, into this very positive thing. He could be this amazing kid who, surprises everybody with his memory. Like, I don't know. I wanted all of his gifts that I knew he had to be what people saw first. Which again shows you my shame. That was all my shame.
Oh, that's true. But as a parent, I'm like, of course. That's okay. Hold on. I have to unpack that for just a minute, Ali. Because yes, that is true. And we learn a lot. We are learning a lot as a global community of people, that our reaction and our behaviors tells you more about us than about other things. But of course, as a parent, we want people to see their strengths because we don't want them to suffer.
Right.
Right? I mean, it's
Absolutely.
dual. Of course, yes, it does also mean that you were trying to hide the bad parts or disguise them underneath the good parts. But also, we want people to see our children for what makes them awesome. So we get to have all of these feelings at once, and some of them are icky feelings and some of them are good feelings. But They're just feelings.
They're feelings.
Chris and Neff's self-compassion work would be like, how about we don't judge ourselves for feeling that way? We just acknowledge that we feel that way.
Yep. My friend told me the other day, she said, feelings are not facts.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, that's good. I'm going to hold on to that.
Yeah.
It's hard to remember that when you're in it, you know?
It is. And we all have skills and talents. I'm sure. What are Jackson's amazing skills and talents? Share them with us.
Sure, absolutely. I would love to. So as I said earlier, he has an amazing memory. So he remembers things that happened. I mean, I'm talking years. He's 8 now. So maybe he was 3 and he pointed something out at the grocery store. He still remembers that. And every time if we go back to that grocery store, he points out that exact same thing. And if we haven't been there for 3 years, he still will do that. That's just one example.
Incredible.
Yeah, it's amazing. And my other favorite example is I'm an actor and a musician, whatever. My husband is not. He loves music, but he's no. He would tell you first. He's not. So I always joke that I really hope that my kids or kid would have an appreciation for music. I just wanted them to have an appreciation for the arts. Little did I know that Jackson was going to come out with perfect pitch and can sing literally anything. He has the most gorgeous little angel voice. And I didn't realize this because I play by ear, and that's how I first learned that I could play the piano. I didn't know he could. And one day, he just sat down and he played a song. And I was like, what? Like he plunked out the melody, and I was like, I didn't know you could do that. And I don't know that he knew he could do it either. But it was wild and wonderful. And of course, because it's something that he does well and we always want him to do it, he's now sort of put his foot down and is like, no, not interested. Yeah, exactly.
I am not your monkey. I am not performing in your circus. Yeah,
exactly. So
eventually he'll get back to that because that is an incredible skill.
It's such a cool gift. Yeah. And so that and he's also super personable, even though he's not 100% social in that he doesn't, Jackson's, I would say his gaps run around a lot of his communication skills. So he knows people, he'll say, going here or whatever, see this person, but he can't have a conversation with you. So there's no back and forth. I'll say, how was school? He'll say, good, even if something horrible happened. So he doesn't process that in the same way. And
how do you protect a kid like that? We're overprotective as a society. I don't mean that. Like, I don't want to be a snowblower parent who clears the path of all obstacles for my kids. But if they don't talk to you and you don't know what's happening in school, how do you protect them?
Let me tell you, it's a different navigation every single day, every single year at the school. It's been something different for us. And I think of the scene in Finding Nemo. Have you seen Finding Nemo?
Oh, yeah.
Where basically, Marlin is so afraid to let Nemo do anything, and then Crush sort of teaches him that sometimes you got to let them go and find their way back into the EAC. And so I think I have been trying desperately to find that balance, and my husband too. And in so doing so, sometimes we've loosened the grip too much, and sometimes we've tightened it too much. So a great example of that is we wanted him to do what all the other kids were doing. This is, of course, way pre-COVID. And we wanted him to be able to ride the bus with all the other kids because we thought he would like that. And he loved it, except he didn't understand that you don't unclip your seatbelt until you're literally stopped in front of your house. And he unclipped his seatbelt and went flying and smashed his face. And then I got yelled at by the bus driver, and my first moment of having to super advocate for him was I stood there just shocked because when I went to pick him up, he's got a bloody nose and it was all, he was obviously had been crying. And I looked at the bus driver and she looked at me. She's like, well, get in here. That was not, the rule was the parents don't step into the bus. But okay, in this particular case, I stepped in and she said, you need to teach him. You teach him that he has to keep his seatbelt on. And I looked at her and there were other kids in the bus and there was obviously a teacher's aide. I looked at the bus driver and I said, you do know he's autistic and he can't do all the things that you want him to do with the exact amount of moments exactly when you want him to do them. He doesn't understand. And she's like, well, you better do something else for him. And I was like, okay. So I took him off the bus and I didn't send him back on the bus.
There you go.
Yep, that year.
That's what you do for him. Yeah.
And so there are and again, that puts a hardship on, if I'm working or a husband's working, we have to figure that out. And to this day, because we've had more than one bus incident, he will never ride the bus again. The last time that he was going to get, this happened not last year, but the year before. He was in first grade. And we were getting what do you call it? Like a special van would come and pick him up to take him to school. Yeah. So they have that in the school. I was like, yeah, I'd like that. I don't want him on the bus, but if somebody can by themselves pick him up and take him, great. So we did that. And the very first day, again, mom's intuition, I just felt like I didn't like the way this was proceeding. I asked the guy if he had a car seat, and he annoyingly opened the back van and pulled out this dusty booster seat and put it in. And I'm like, okay. And I'm like, do you know where you're going? And he's like, yeah, take to school. And I was like, yes, take him to school. And my gut just stepped in, and I took a picture of the number on the van and the information, and I just sat with it. And I got a call telling me that he's okay now, but they had dropped him at the wrong school.
Oh my God.
And left. And he just followed the kids and then ended up on a playground in this school. When the bell rang, he didn't go in because he didn't know. And nobody said his name or knew him. And a mom, a local mom whose child was at the school, but she also had a little one that was playing on that playground, went up to him and was like, are you supposed to be in school? And of course he can't respond. And so she calls the principal. I knew none of this while this was going on as well. So she calls the principal. The principal comes out, I guess, and gets him and asks him questions he can't answer. He doesn't even tell him his name because he doesn't know these people, right?
Right, yeah.
They start walking him around the school, and he's very compliant. So he was willing to do that and looking in classes and whatever. And somebody said, I think I saw him get out of one of the the vans that they bring for the children. And so he puts them in the office, and he starts searching schools to see if anybody was missing a kid. And
wow.
Yeah, lo and behold, our school said, yeah, he didn't make it to class today. I didn't know that. Usually his mom would tell us. So they call the same van company. The same dude shows back up, and they put my child, in the same van with the same dude who does drop him at the right school at this point. I do not get a phone call until after he's already back in class.
Oh my God.
I was, can I swear? Because
you can swear.
I was bullshit mad. I didn't even know what to do with the anger. They actually ended up calling. I was in a meeting, and they called me. I didn't pick up the phone right away. They left me a voice message. My husband picked up, and he was at work. And he literally said, I have to go. And he bolted out of work and drove home. And then I got the voice message, and then we were communicating. And it was the scariest thing.
It's terrifying. And how did Jackson feel about it all?
So as far as I know, Jackson, he doesn't really tell us when things hurt or when things are a problem.
But he must have a way of acting out when he's scared or hurt or...
Absolutely, he does. He'll definitely say things like, no, or I don't want that, or no this, or no that. And so we know when it's something that he doesn't want. But in the moment, from what they said, he came back into the class and he was happy and seemed fine. And, it didn't faze him outwardly, which is I want to touch on this for a second, because I was writing a blog a while back, and in my blog I was talking about how we talk about the different functions of autistic people, kids, adults, and there's this high functioning, low functioning, and that's so demeaning and wrong, actually. And an autistic person commented on my blog and said something to the effect of, when those labels are placed on us, it's because that's how all of you view what's going on with us. So you think I'm high functioning because I'm able to communicate and I can get through the world or whatever. But inside, I am dying. I am trying to work so hard to just, make everything okay, or make myself, did I look at that person long enough? Did I not? So that functioning labels are so awful because it's our view of it. It's not how they are feeling. And the closest you could come to that is somebody with ADHD who can technically function, but it's the amount of energy it takes to do things sometimes.
I have a child like that.
Oh, yeah. So you know. So it's a totally different way that the brain interprets and works. And I thought that is such a good point, because you hear that like, oh, it's, it's such an ableist term to say that, but understanding why was so much more meaningful and impactful for me. So to get to your question, he might have been going through something, and he was just knew that I'm in school mode and I'm supposed to be, a good kid in a good mood, and nothing's pushed me too far and I'm okay. So it's quite possible that he was rattled, but nobody could see it and nobody knew. And he was, I know. I know, right?
I know.
Ugh.
Okay, so let's chat about you. And I say this clearly. This has taken a huge precedence in your life. Like it is a huge part of your life, and bless you. I'm not religious, but universe bless you. You decided that you still wanted to have more children.
Oh my goodness, this was hard. So I'll take you through that journey if you want to go with me. Okay, so we had Jackson, and then I got pregnant again when he was 8 months old. So this is pre-diagnosis, even having inklings.
Did you say
that
8 months old?
He was 8 months old.
Holy shit.
Yeah. Could you imagine? I would have had this baby and it would have been just like...
My oldest kids are 20 months apart, and it almost killed me, and I didn't... Oh, my God.
Yeah. It was wild. And so I was like, oh, okay, there's that you are pregnant sign. Okay, we're going to deal with this. Pregnancy was going, and then we got through the first testing, and they came back and said there's some big problems, It was heartbreaking and awful, and we had to make decisions, and we made probably the most heartbreaking decision of my life, which was to terminate the pregnancy, and that was impossibly hard for a long time. So I have this child who's not developing 100% the way you expect a child to develop. As much as I knew, I didn't have other kids, so I didn't know what to, but against my friends and things I was seeing or hearing or reading. So I just assumed that I think I missed a lot of signs as well, because I was going through my own grieving process during this. So when that was done, I went into a grief counseling group specifically for terminated pregnancies because of medical diagnosis problems. And that was very helpful. I learned a lot in that group. I met some of the most amazing people, and the resilience that I saw from so many of my friends. But this is interesting. Every single one of them thought that the moment that when they got pregnant again after this, that was going to mean that they were healing or healed or whatever. And I was the only one in the group that was like, I am never doing this again. I don't know how you all are doing this again. I don't know how it's so easy. Not easy, it wasn't easy, but I don't know how you're able to do this. And a lot of them, it was their first pregnancy, so I get it. But I already had a kid, So I was like, I don't think I can, I'm just going to focus on him. I can't do this again. So I didn't. And we just stayed as a one family, one kid, one family, and going through, his development issues. Again, still no diagnosis yet. And then I had this moment where I had like that 51% of me was like, maybe I want to have another kid. I don't want to leave Jackson without a sibling. I have a sibling. My husband has a sibling. I felt like that was the right thing to do. Mm-hmm. But I was only at about 51% because I was still grieving, and I was still scared, and I was still worried about what happens if the same thing happens again, all of that. Everybody assured me that's not what happens. It doesn't usually, it's not like a back-to-back thing. There's no genetic reason, blah, blah, blah. Okay, fine. So I got pregnant again, and everything's going fine. And then we go in for the CVS test, which not everybody does, but I wanted to do it. It's like a pre-amnio
history. Makes sense.
Yeah. So we went in, and they check, they check you. It's like a checkup, but then they do an ultrasound, then they put the needle in and all of that. And I'd had it done already once before, or twice before, so I knew what was coming. So they're doing the ultrasound or the sonogram, and they're looking, and the baby's not moving.
Oh my God.
So here we are at now, 12, 13 weeks. And that was when we had to, my first termination was at 14 weeks. So here I am now again, right around the same time, and now being just told that there's no heartbeat, the baby's not moving.
Oh my God.
So that was devastating.
You poor thing.
Thank you. It was hard. I was very, at that point, I was like, no more kids, we're done. All done, no more, done. And my mom, that was the first word she said to me when I showed up to her house.
Don't do this to yourself again.
Don't do this to yourself again.
Yeah,
yep.
That's what a mom would say.
Yep.
And I have to just say that as we're talking about this, I literally feel like I'm going to be sick. We're 2 days out from Texas passing their laws that would prevent you from being able to do what you had to do.
Yes.
To save your own life.
Yeah. And what is even crazier is that what they called the second baby, the second one, the one that didn't have a heartbeat, they called it a missed abortion. And I said, that's the worst way to describe that, right? So that's the medical term for it. I didn't know that until it was said to me. And I said, what does that even mean? And they said, well, the baby basically passed away, but you have not. It probably passed away like 4 weeks ago by the size of what we see. And so your body just hasn't like decided to do anything. So we have to go and intervene. And we have to, it's not good for you to basically carry around a dead fetus. And so I was like, oh, so I have to have another DNC. Awesome. So, in a way, I'm grateful for that. I will be honest with you. I don't know that I would have been able to go through what I hear, the devastating experience of a miscarriage and what that experience is like at that time, knowing that it was basically, what was to come. Whereas instead they just put me out. They did their thing and then I could start the healing process. I felt much more grateful for that. Yeah. So, okay. So that's done. We're not getting pregnant again. And then we have Jackson's diagnosis. We're going through all this stuff with him. And I had it's a very woo thing. And so I hesitate to say because I'm not very woo at all.
Oh, we're very woo around here. Come on.
Okay, all right. I mean, but I'm not usually. I have a couple wooies things, but this is a little more woo for me. I met a person who was doing basically like a workshop for voiceover, which is one of the things that I do. And I was there and she mentioned just offhand that she has another business that she does Reiki. And if anybody's interested, she says, I'm leaving town. So if you want this, you better call me immediately. And I couldn't forget about it. And so I called her and she said, come on in. And so I came in and I was skeptical, but it was fine. And I laid there and after I felt so open and free and better. I cried, but I was like, okay. And she said, how was that for you? And I told her, and then she said, here's what I saw. She's like, I went in, I saw some intense stuff going on with you, and I cleared away both of the babies. The stuff you were hanging on to.
The energy there. Yeah.
She didn't know. She had no idea. Like, it's not like we had that. I know.
I love shit
we had
like
never
that.
had. Right? We never had that conversation. She knew I had a kid. She did not know that I had 2 pregnancies that did not manifest into, living children. And she said that energy is gone now. And it's the craziest thing, but I felt lighter. I felt like there was healing going on. I could entertain the idea of, well, what if? And I probably sat with that for about a month. And then I remember sitting in my car with my husband. We had just pulled into the garage and I said, I have to talk about something with you. And he said, what? And I said, I know this is nuts, but I kind of want to try this one more time. Wow. And he was like, he was fine with just having Jackson. He was fine. He didn't need another kid. It wasn't like something that was in him, but something in me was like, I just have to try one more time. I feel like I'm strong enough. I feel like I can do this. Even if it turns out poorly, I think I can handle this. So we did. We got pregnant after like 2 months of trying, and I have my baby boy, Jordan.
Gosh, goodness. And how old is Jordan?
So Jordan is 3. He'll be 4 in May. So, yeah.
And no signs of autism in him?
So we actually were really cognizant of that. We looked and, we saw that he had some developmental issues going on. And so at 9 months, I called EI and they, took him and started working with him. And so he had PT, OT, and speech from a very early age. And I honestly think that he's still a little behind, but I don't think it's technically an autism diagnosis. If anything, it's maybe we have a lot of ADHD in my family. It may be some of that. It may just, I don't think he's neurotypical and the most neurotypical person out there. He's definitely has something spectrumy going on, but it's
I don't
not.
think most people
Anyone
are
is, right?
neurotypical, really.
So true.
anymore.
It's so true. We're not. But yeah, so I think, I mean, this is a kid that can have a conversation with me at 3. I've never experienced that with my kids. Like I ask him a question, he answers. I ask him something else, he can communicate with me. Wow. It's a very different experience than with Jackson. So yeah, it's been a wild ride, and they, obviously have completely different personalities. But the one conversation that my husband and I had, his name is John, by the way. I keep saying my husband, but like his name is John.
You got all the J's going on. I put all the A's.
Well, the funny thing is that the name that I had planned, if I had had a girl, was going to be an A name. So it just so happened that the J worked out twice. In the first case, he was named after my grandpa Joe, and Jackson was. And then with Jordan, I named his middle name after someone who had passed away, which is a common thing to do in Jewish tradition, right? Yep. So his middle name was named after an aunt of mine who had passed away. So, got it in. But like, I really like the name Jordan, and we were dumb because now we have 2 J names and we just don't know who we're talking to. And I have it even worse because I'm calling John, Jordan, Jackson. I don't know who I'm talking to. So, but anyway. Long story short, John, he, I don't even know where I was going. I was on a thread and then I lost it with all the J names.
I know, sorry. I distracted you.
It's okay. It's okay. It's no big deal. I don't even think it was that important, but, I know. So John has experienced now what it's like to have Jordan in our life and see that. And I think even he now, once he was born, it was like, of course, his great dad. But having that different personality is so interesting to see the dynamic between even them as father and son and me as mother and son and how different it is. And John and I were talking about the fact that soon, like within the next year, we are going to have a conversation with Jordan about what it means to be Jackson's brother and what it is, how that's different maybe than other people. And, as bad as this sounds, and I really hope this isn't the case, but, he's probably going to have to do a lot of standing up for and defending him as time goes on. That's not something I'll tell him when he's 4, but, as I think about it, it's, I often worry that Jackson's not a burden, but I worry that because of because I don't know what his adult life is going to look like. We don't know with any of our kids, but specifically with Jackson, I don't know how independent he can be. So I don't know if Jordan's going to have to be there to help him when we're gone. I don't know. I don't know what that's going to look like. Yeah. So, it's a scary thing. We filled out a will, we filled all that stuff because we need guardianship for Jackson. At least when I was pregnant when we did all this, and I was like, okay, for this and the next baby, the guardianship has to be there if something happens, because this is not a child that can, navigate the world.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's probably a whole separate hour-long interview conversation is how can you set the boys up so that Jordan doesn't have to be responsible? Of course you would want him to be, but like where it's not his quote unquote burden to make sure his brother is taken care of. It's really tricky.
It is
It's a lot
tricky
to think about.
It is.
How do you handle this? You indicated earlier in the conversation that you have a past history with mental health concerns, and from an emotional and mental standpoint, how do you take care of yourself?
I'm working on that currently.
Good.
Lots of therapy. I went through a very, I've been in therapy, what I would say is practically my whole life, but I never found a therapist the right therapist for me, the right type of therapy for me. So I was going to a lot of, cognitive behavioral therapy, and that because I'm a push away my emotions kind of a person, that cerebral work just didn't it didn't make a change in me at all. And then I just thought it was something wrong with me and la la da. And then all the stuff bubbles up. And then I'm like, I'm not taking your drugs because you don't even know what's wrong with, all of that. And so I finally had a really deep depression. It was after I was about a year into having given birth to Jordan, and I had postpartum anxiety with Jackson. Didn't realize that until way later. So I had postpartum anxiety with Jordan and immediately got on medication. And it was working for a while. It was fine. And then it wasn't. And my depression got so bad, I couldn't get out of bed. I was horribly depressed. I was in a place where the burden on my husband was so bad. John was doing everything. He was changing diapers. He was putting boys to bed. It was awful. And and on top of that, the shame and the feeling bad and the guilty and I'm not a good mommy and all of those things were
because you don't want that to be happening. You just literally can't change it.
And even when I would get up, like I was listening to one of your other episodes, and sometimes getting out of bed is the brave thing. And I literally would have to be like, I can stand up. I can walk to the bathroom. I can go give Jackson a hug. I can give Jordan a kiss. I can breastfeed him, whatever it was. Like, I can do this. And it was just, it took all of my energy that when I was finished with whatever the task was, I had to get back into bed. And I realized that this is just not a way I want to live. So this is so crazy. I saw a CNN special. I don't even watch CNN, but it was like a thing on depression medications, but off the beaten path. So new things that they're trying, like ketamine and MDMA, basically ecstasy. So different things that they're working on right now. And I latched onto that, and I thought, if I could find a clinical trial, I would do that. I want to do that because it looked like a good answer to a stressful situation. So I'm working with a psychiatrist at this point who's been, messing with my meds. It's not really doing anything. And so and my therapist that I had found, who's my amazing therapist, I basically broached it with her and I said, what do you think about me trying this? And she said, I think it's great. It sounds like you really need it. And so I found a place in Chicago that had ketamine, and I did the whole process. I took all my stuff, which is very different for me. I'm not a person who takes a lot of like recreational drugs and things. So that was just a wild ride for me, in all the ways. And, but it helped. It boosted whatever I needed. It sort of healed some of the depression. I was able to get out of bed. I was able to start doing things. I could try new medications and they were starting to work again. And I just dove deep with my therapist, and she makes me feel my feelings. She doesn't let me go into my cerebral place, So all of that together, when the pandemic hit and everything shut down, I had this moment where I said, obviously I'm an actor. I will always be an actor. I was very fortunate to be booked on a couple of things even during COVID. But I knew that something had to change. And I said to her, I know this is crazy, but I kind of want to do what you do. And she said, well, you can. And I said, okay, what do I do? I said, I guess I need to go to grad school. And she's like, yeah, that's probably the best thing to do.
Or you can coach. You don't have to be a licensed therapist.
This is 100% true. Absolutely. But I was like, I haven't been in school in a while. Can I actually handle this? And my friend's a coach, and she said the same thing to me. And I was like, you know what? It's tempting, but I don't know why. But my name is being called to go deeper into this therapy, deeper into myself.
I love that.
And the thing that she said, and I'm sure this happens with coaching too, but the thing she said to me that really kind of pushed me over the edge was she said, you will learn so much more about yourself going through these 2-3 years than you would even imagine. You think you're going out there to help other people, but you're actually really helping yourself so that you're able to help other people.
Yeah. We teach what we most need to learn.
Exactly. And I thought, I need that right now. And so I applied to grad school and I got in, and I'm starting this month.
Congratulations, Ali.
Thank you.
That's really cool. You'll have to check back in with us and let us know what that journey and process is like. I honestly, I'd love to have you back because I have so many more questions and so many other things that I want to talk to you about, but we are really closing in on time here right now. But I try not to, do y'all know this who listen? I don't really script these conversations. I have bullet points of things that I want to talk about and highlight, but I really follow the flow of the conversation. And this has been such an enlightening, heartfelt conversation. Our lives intersect in so many fascinating ways. Parenting is wild. It can be really challenging. Being an adult is wild and challenging. And the call to support others or to do things that we don't know why, like get pregnant after you've had two tragic experiences, or go back to school when you have all of these other things on your plate so that you can heal yourself and heal other people, right? Like we hear these things and we find moments that speak to us. We find signs that help guide us in the next direction, in the next path that we want to go to. And I just love the opportunity to sit in this seat and share those stories with people. And what you've shared with us today is just so heart-centered and powerful. And thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
We're not done yet, though.
Okay.
I just had to say that. You have taken so much of what you've been experiencing, what you've learning, and you have a podcast. Can you tell folks about your podcast?
Yes, absolutely. So one of the things that, even though I was overwhelmed with information, I didn't find when Jackson was first diagnosed, I was so lost on where to go. And it was more about how I was feeling than it was about like, this is the next step you take. And it was so heartening to me to think I'm already past that point. I've done the diagnosis. I've done the IEP. I've done these things. There's got to be somebody who's in my shoes. And as I joined all these Facebook groups, I began noticing that was the questions people kept asking, was like, how do I stop crying? How do I get through this? How am I alone in feeling this way? And so I thought, well, I want to do a podcast. Maybe I should talk about this. And so my podcast is basically about navigating that should have been one of my words, navigating the experience of being a creative person, being in a creative, career, and having a child with special needs, and how they intersect and how they battle each other, and where to put focus, and how to find those pockets of your own space, even though you feel like everything you have is being given over to advocating for your child. So, so it goes
that can be so relevant, even if your child isn't autistic. Like there's so much of that. What's it called?
It's called the Acting Up podcast. If you search it, it's Acting Up with Ali Goodman.
And we can find that anywhere. Wherever they're listening to this podcast, they can listen to yours.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Okay, absolutely. I love that. I'm excited to ask you this question because, especially when we've talked about things that are so challenging and difficult, how do you celebrate? You personally, but also maybe as a family? Is there a way to bring celebration into Jackson's life?
Oh, yeah, there is. I love that. So really quickly, personally, I'm still working on that, to be completely frank with you. I think it changes for me. I have one thing that I like to do every day. I have a puzzle app, and I like to do that puzzle. It's my joy. I cross-stitch, so sometimes I'll do that. So those are like my moments of like getting time in to do stuff for me. With us as a family, Jackson loves to go on walks. So we have a Starbucks nearby us, so we'll walk through the park and we'll walk to the Starbucks as a family, and then we'll walk back and maybe we go on the playground, or we've put a little thing outside for the boys to play on a little playground in the backyard. So especially during the pandemic times when it was really, really scary, that was a place that they could go and play. So we would all go outside together and we would just all be out there, playing around. And we try to find ways that all of us have fun together. And a lot of times that literally means holing up in a room together and just playing music and laughing. Recently, Jordan learned how to kick a ball, so we were all kicking the ball back and forth the other day, and it was one of my favorite moments of like family memories, is having all of us kicking the ball around. It was just really fun.
I love that. That's beautiful. There are so many ways to celebrate, and I've never had anyone on the show say that doing a puzzle feels like a celebration for them. I love that. It's just a reminder. A celebration is a thing that brings you joy and allows you to stop and pause and reflect and be grateful. And the more we do it, the more of it there is to do. So that's really lovely. Thank you. And
Thank you.
I love the idea of you all out kicking a ball and that feeling joyous and celebratory. Ali, what is your favorite charitable organization to support?
It's so funny that you brought up Texas and what's going on. Planned Parenthood is 100% on my list right now, top of the list. I'm a huge advocate. They helped me out a lot. So
absolutely.
I believe in them.
Planned Parenthood is one that we hold near and dear as well. So listeners, do what you can. Go out and like and support and share. And if you can donate. If you've got time. If you can help people through what is obviously a very challenging and difficult time, we do whatever you can. So thank you for sharing that. Ali, will you give your 3 words one last time?
Absolutely. Intuitive, raw, resilient.
Yeah. I'd say those words describe you really beautifully. And it's a joy. You're a joy. You bring so much light and positive energy into something that I know has been quite a challenge for you. Again, thank you so much for being here and for sharing your story with us.
Thank you so much for having me. It was a joy to be here. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, listeners, I want to know what you think about this episode, how it's resonating with you. You can email me directly at heather@vickeryandco.com. I promise you I will respond to you personally. How are you out choosing bravely? And talking about choosing bravely, here's me stepping up into my own brave and asking you to please consider joining my book launch team. My new book, Fuck Fearless, Making the Brave Leap, comes out on October 28th. And I really need your help to get the word out and make sure people know that this book exists so we can get it in the hands of as many people as possible. If you would like to learn more, there are lots of ways to join the book launch team, simply from agreeing to buy the book and share it on social media to lots of other options. Visit vickeryandco.com/brave circle and let us know how you want to participate. We'll get in touch and we will make it as easy for you as possible. I cannot be successful in this launch without your help. So that's me asking you in a really brave way to come on and support us. I hope that whatever you're doing today, you're conscious of how you're choosing bravely. This is Heather Vickery reminding you today and every day, just go out and choose bravely. Bye. Hey friends, I want to share something really exciting with you. We already know you enjoy listening to podcasts because you're listening to this one, but I'm also betting you enjoy audiobooks. And hey, listen, if you don't already enjoy audiobooks, then it's time to check them out. That's why I'm really excited to share Libro.fm with you. They are an incredible new platform for listening to audiobooks. And by choosing Libro.fm over other audiobook services, you are supporting a local bookstore of your choice and investing in your local community. Libro.fm offers over 150,000 audiobooks via their primary platform, which, by the way, they built with love and from scratch because they're a small business also. They even offer bookseller recommendations for great audiobook options. You can sign up right now via www.vickeryandco.com/LibroFM. That's vickeryandco.com/LIBROFM. And when you do, you'll get one free audiobook of your choice, and the proceeds will go to your favorite local bookstore. Now, check what I just said there. You're going to get a free book, and the proceeds are still going to go to your local bookstore because Libro.fm makes sure that their booksellers get paid even when they give a promo to customers. I've listened to over 20 audiobooks this year alone. I especially love listening to memoirs read by the author, and it feels great knowing that all of my purchases support my local bookstore, The Book Table, in Oak Park, Illinois. Libro.fm. The same audiobooks, the same price, but a completely different story. Check them out right now at vickeryandco.com/LibroFM. Have you ever thought about starting a podcast? Maybe you've had this thought and then quickly shut it down because who has the time? Or you don't know how, or gosh, it just all seems too hard. If you have something to share with the world, we want to encourage you to get your message out. The world needs to hear it. Did you know that 50% of all homes are podcast fans? If you've ever wondered about having your own podcast or how it can increase your business or get your message across, then please join me and the other experts from the Podcast Power Academy for our monthly free Q&A session. It's called So You Want to Start a Podcast? This casual live conversation will help you understand how podcasting can be a great decision, why now is the best time to get started, and how to get into action with it. Visit podcastpoweracademy.com to learn more. You've been listening to The Brave Files, stories of people living courageously. To learn more about the show, find our show notes and full episode transcripts, or to get some great bonus content, visit thebravefilespodcast.com. And we would love to know what you think of the show. You can give us a call at 312-646-0205. Let us know your thoughts on the episode, the show in general, or maybe share with us how you're out choosing bravely. This episode is brought to you by Vickery & Co. Success Coaching. Coaching that helps you maintain a life well lived and a business well run. Learn more at vickeryandco.com. Our music was created and produced in a custom collaboration with Matt Lewis from ML Creative Consulting, a boutique firm dedicated to helping clients identify their unique sound and amplify their brand with custom delivered soundtracks. We couldn't do any of this without our extraordinary audio engineer, Andrew Olson. Learn more about him and check out his work at findandrewolson.com. And special thanks to everyone on Team Brave, from our producers, associate producers, copy editors, writers, and support team. Special thanks to Molly, Mary, Kim, Sabra, and Sabrina. I'm your host and executive producer, Heather Vickery. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll talk to you next week.